Chapter 890. On the battlefield, leaving one's horse was a very dangerous thing to do. If he didn't handle it well, he wouldn't know where the blade would come from and end his life. But at this time, in order to fulfill his dream, he couldn't care less. The two enemy riders were getting closer and closer. Huhelu could already see the murderous eyes behind the black cloth. But at this time, Huhelu suddenly jumped into the air. Then he turned around and slashed at the back of the head of the unprepared elite Tatar rider. The pincer attack of the two elite Tatar riders was blocked because of Huhelu's sudden jump. Not only that, but the back of the head of one of the elite Tatar riders was cut. The sharp blade fell and half of the head was chopped off. Blood flowed out and the elite Tatar rider fell from his horse. Half of his head fell to the ground. He couldn't be more dead. Finally, he killed another person. Huhelu had completed the mission of killing 3 enemies. Naturally, he was extremely excited in his heart. However, before he could cheer, he had already fallen from mid-air. Unfortunately, he sprained his ankle, and a heart-wrenching pain drilled into his body from his ankle. With his foot sprained, he could no longer stand. At this time, the elite Tatar riders on the other side had already moved their horses and rushed towards him. On one side was a person who borrowed the momentum of the horse to rush forward. On the other side was an injured soldier who was half kneeling on the ground. The result was self-evident. This scene also deeply attracted the attention of the scouts who were observing the battlefield. They were ordered by Yang Chendong to observe the results of the battle. In order to be able to see everything more clearly, they didn't want to lose any military merit. Hundreds of people had binoculars. Just now, Huhelu's performance was seen by several people. Seeing that the first warrior who killed 3 enemies had finally appeared, they didn't have time to cheer. Seeing that this person was about to be in danger, everyone held their breath and held their breath. Ah! Half kneeling on the ground, Huhelu saw the killing move in front of him. He didn't know where he got the strength from, but he suddenly dashed forward and rushed under the warhorse of the elite Tatar cavalry. He then brandished his saber and chopped off the rear hooves of the warhorse. The warhorse that was galloping at high speed also fell to the ground with a plop. The elite Tatar cavalry also fell to the ground together with it. It was a very disgraceful scene of a dog eating feces. After chopping off the warhorse's hind leg, Huhelu did not stop there. Instead, he turned around and crawled forward. In less than 2 breaths, he arrived behind the Tatar elite cavalry that was in a state of confusion. Then, he abruptly plunged his saber down and ended the life of another enemy. After killing 4 people in a row, not only would he be promoted, but he would also be able to bring a family member with him. The excited Huhelu seemed to have regained some strength in his body. He placed his left hand beside his mouth and whistled sharply. The horse in the distance heard the sound and came over. He then jumped onto the horse and turned around to head back to the mercenary base camp. Catch him! Seeing that someone had killed 2 of their companions, the 4 elite Tatar riders showed anger and rushed over. They would never allow such a warrior to escape. It was an insult to them. Shoot! As for Huhelu, he endured the pain coming from his foot and tried his best to rush back. Finally, he was 300 meters away from the mercenary camp. 4 gunshots rang out and hit the feet of the 4 elite Tatar cavalry who wanted to rush over. The 4 gunshots caused the horses to neigh, and also caused the 4 elite Tatar riders to curse. But in the face of thousands of black muzzles, they didn't dare to cross the line. They cursed all the way back. Huhelu rushed out of the King of Hell's palace. A few scouts immediately came forward to lead the horses. The medics who had been waiting for a long time also came forward to check the injuries. Another scout in charge of registration ran to Yang Chendong and saluted. 6th young master, this person killed 4 enemies and returned safely. In the midst of the silence, cheers suddenly rang out. Finally, someone had passed the test. While everyone was celebrating for him, they were also cheering for themselves. Since one person could do it, there would be a second person who could do it. Good. Yang Chendong patted the back of the chair and stood up. When he noticed that everyone's eyes were focused on him, he took the information in his hand and looked at it. He then announced loudly, Huhelu killed 4 elite Tatar riders on the battlefield. His military service is outstanding and he is the first soldier of the 1st Cavalry Division. He will be promoted and from now on, he is a member of the Han. At the same time, he has the right to promote a family member. Everyone, congratulate him. After speaking, Yang Chendong took the lead and clapped his hands. The applause immediately became continuous. Many excited Mongol soldiers from the Gobi Desert shouted, "Long live the Heavenly Khan! Long live the Heavenly Khan!" Suddenly, the cheers came one after another. Hu Helu, who was supported to stand up, also had tears of excitement in his eyes. He finally achieved his dream. At this moment, he felt that his feet didn't hurt anymore. When the cheers came out, it attracted the attention of the Tatar army. They didn't understand. The other side lost again. What was there to cheer about? Could it be that more of them had escaped from this battle? Looking at the battle report, killing 1,300 enemies and losing 54 cavalry, Tuatata shook his head. Then he said with certainty, "While there is still time, continue to send people to fight. This Khan wants to see how long they can last." The third battle soon began. Compared to the previous battle, the Mongol soldiers from the Gobi Desert were sent out this time. However, their morale was much higher. This battle lasted until dusk. And in this battle, there were 2 more brave warriors who managed to kill 3 enemies. Yang Chendong also promoted them in front of everyone and announced that they would join the world's first cavalry division that would be established soon, becoming glorious warriors. 3 battles in a day. The first battle took 4 hours. The second battle took slightly more than 4 hours. The third battle took almost 4 hours. They killed more than 100 enemies and lost more than 3,000 men. Just from this point alone, the mercenaries were the ones who lost. However, for some reason, the mercenaries' morale didn't drop. Instead it rose. Other than those who had lost the battle and were seriously injured, the others were filled with energy. They wanted to perform well on the battlefield. In the headquarters of the new division, Commander Tiger Mane and Deputy Commander Shibi had just finished patrolling the troops and made arrangements for the night watch. They went back to their tent to wash their faces and prepare to sleep. After wiping his face with a towel, Commander Tiger Mane couldn't help but sigh. He said, "Today's losses are quite big." Hehe. Shibi, who was at the side, chuckled. "What are you laughing at?" Shibi's laughter made Tiger Mane feel a little confused. "Nothing. I just want to ask Commander if you are worried that we can't bear the losses. Also, when it's our new army's turn, will we suffer the same loss?" "That's right. Is this not worth worrying about? You saw it today. The elite Tatar cavalry is indeed fierce. They are very good at horse riding and their individual qualities are also very high. They also know how to cooperate in battle. To be honest, if the same number of troops were to fight them head-on, I'm afraid that other than the heavy cavalry regiment, no other troops would have an advantage. Shouldn't this be worrying?" Facing Tiger Mane's question, Shibi nodded with a serious expression. But then he shook his head. "Commander, don't worry. Although the elite Tatar cavalry is strong, the soldiers of our new division are not to be trifled with. If we really fight, we won't be at a disadvantage by relying on our arrow point formation and the 3x3 formation. Besides, the 6th young master isn't worried. What do we have to worry about? From a certain point of view, this is indeed a way to improve our fighting strength. As long as they are not killed, even if they escape, they will gain a lot of fighting experience. Besides, didn't the 6th young master say that during the meeting at night? Those who escape will be given a chance. As long as they have the courage, they will have the chance to fight again in the future. That way, the morale will not drop and the army will be easy to control. There is nothing to worry about." Tiger Mane understood what Shibi said. But what he didn't understand was why they had to fight with the most barbaric and primitive cold weapons when they clearly had guns and cannons. By doing so, they would inevitably lose some strength. Was it really worth it just to train the soldiers? Considering that the 6th young master had said more than once that Shibi was very smart, and most importantly, he could see the big picture. She could learn a lot by staying with him. Tiger Mane leaned in front of Shibi. "Deputy Commander, have you already seen through the mystery? Come, tell me." Looking at Tiger Mane's eager eyes, Shibi didn't dare to hide anything. He nodded and said, "Well, since Commander wants to know, then I will tell you. It's just a casual remark. If I'm wrong, please don't blame me." No, it's just the 2 of us here. Just treat it as a casual conversation and say whatever comes to mind." Tiger Mane waved his hand and sat down opposite Shibi with a smile. He even took the initiative to pour a cup of hot tea for Shibi. Shibi quickly got up and took the teacup. Then, He gently put it down.
After organizing his words, he said, "Commander, the sixth young master has talked more than once about the art of elite soldiers.
In fact, I think it is very necessary.
Think about it, if there are too many troops it might seem very powerful, but the cost is also very high.
Especially when we mercenaries are treated so well, the amount of money we need to spend every day is a large amount. Only the sixth young master has such strong financial resources. If it were other people, I'm afraid they wouldn't be able to last a day." Chapter 891. Yes, it's true that we mercenaries can fight, and our morale is the strongest. However, when it comes to treatment, I can't deny that. Tiger's mane nodded. This was also why he admired Yang Chendong. With money, he would not forget to give his brothers as much benefits as possible. This way, everyone would work harder in battle. This would form a virtuous cycle.
Seeing Tiger's mane nod in agreement, he continued, "However, it takes money to feed the army. Even if the sixth young master is rich now, once the scale of the army expands to a certain extent, the pressure will not be small.
At this time, the combat power of the army will become the key.
How to maintain the combat power of the army without increasing the number of people in the army will become a problem that the leaders have to consider."
"Yes, go on." Tiger's mane nodded. He agreed with this point of view. "That's why we have this practical training. Think about it, we chose the strongest elite Tatar cavalry this time. If we can even pass their test, then our current army will be a powerful one. Of course, there will definitely be casualties in the process. The sixth young master has already made arrangements for this. Now there are more than 40,000 people in the logistics division. The mercenaries captured more than 20,000 enemies in the Battle of Saihan Mountain. They will be our powerful backing. Once the new army suffers too many casualties, they will come in handy. Those people are reserve soldiers. Their treatment is not as good as the official mercenaries. In order to improve their treatment, they will have to perform well. The soldiers will figure this out themselves. We don't even need to do any work. We just need to watch everything from the sidelines and wait for the sixth young master to create an elite army for us. We can just pick up the ready-made ones.
Not to mention, after this battle, it is equivalent to integrating the forces of the Mongolian tribes in the north of the Gobi Desert.
Think about it, those who died today are those people. However, no one forced them. Not only that, those small leaders also took the initiative to ask for battle. They were afraid that the sixth young master would not give them a chance.
After this battle, what will happen?"
She smiled and looked at Tiger's mane. When Tiger's mane was asked this question, various results flashed through his mind.
"In the end," he said with certainty, "in the end, either the real warriors among these people will join the 1st Cavalry Division, or they will be dead or injured and will not be a threat to us."
Yes, that's the result.
Without a single blade or spear, with the benefits of good treatment and promotion, the combat power of the Gobi Desert's Mongolian army was destroyed.
From now on, the sixth young master will live up to his name. Khan. Commander. Yes. When Tiger's mane heard this analysis, he excitedly reached out his hand and slammed the table.
He then looked at Shibi and said, "No wonder the young master asked me to talk to you more when I'm free.
He said that you have a good view of the overall situation." "It is true. Deputy Commander, if you see anything in the future, you can teach me. I will work hard to learn from you." "You are too serious, Commander. We can learn from each other," Shibi hurriedly said politely. He would not forget the identity of the person in front of him.
Even if he did not know anything and did things very ordinary, with his background as the servant of the sixth young master, he would have a bright future.
As smart as Shibi was, he quickly saw through Yang Chendong's intention.
Among the small leaders of the Mongolian tribes in the north of the Gobi Desert, there were some smart people.
When they calmed down in the middle of the night, they also saw the problem. But what made them helpless was that the current situation was not something they could change.
The temptation of becoming the 1st Cavalry Division was too great.
Even if they wanted to lead the troops away now, they were afraid that none of their brothers would listen to them. Not only would their brothers not agree, but they also wanted to perform well and fight for a future.
Speaking of which, they were the small leaders of the tribes, but they were only the leaders of a few hundred or 1,000 people. They were young and had some ability now, so the people in the tribe would listen to them.
But what about the day when they grew old? Or what about the day when he was targeted and lost the battle and lost his power? It was hard to say whether they could secure the position of a tribe leader. In contrast, the position of a mercenary was really stable. They had specific and detailed rules. Even if you were old or injured on the battlefield and could no longer fight, you could still enjoy some good treatment. It was impossible to become a king or a tyrant with this, but it was not a problem for you to be content with being a wealthy citizen. Even these small leaders couldn't resist the temptation, let alone the ordinary cavalrymen. Most of them were young, driven, and had dreams. In the past, there was no platform for them to perform. Now that there was a platform for them to perform, who would not work hard and do their best? That night, many people were too excited to sleep. The next morning, after breakfast, the battle began again. Compared to yesterday, the Mongolian soldiers of Mo Bay performed better. Not only did they die less, but they also killed more enemies. In one day, they fought 3 battles. Compared to yesterday, only 3 people passed. Today, there were 23 people who passed the test. Among them, 4 of them killed 4 enemies and retreated safely. One by one, Yang Qindong sent the orders to the soldiers who were about to become the world's #1 cavalry division. This scene greatly stimulated everyone. Even the Mongol soldiers who had retreated from the battlefield requested to fight again, wanting to give it their all. Yang Qindong agreed to these people's requests. But he still decided to let everyone go through the first round before thinking about the second round. Otherwise, if all the training was used on the Mongolian soldiers of Mo Bay, the new soldiers would complain and say it was unfair. The battle continued. Unexpectedly, it lasted for a month. During that time, there were 2 heavy rains and 4 or 5 drizzles. But it did not stop the battle from continuing. At this moment, both the mercenaries and the Tatar army seemed to be exhausted. No one wanted to retreat. Everyone wanted to see who would be the first to give up. Maybe then, the winner would appear. In a month's time, all the warriors who could fight had fought several times. Some of the elite Tatar cavalry had fought more than 7 or 8 times. Their number had increased from 30,000 to 10,000, and many of them were injured. As for the mercenaries, their losses were not small. 30,000 of their 50,000 soldiers were killed or injured. This was because Yuan Heping had set up a hospital near the battlefield to ensure that the injured soldiers could receive good treatment and recover quickly as long as their injuries were not too serious. Of course, after a month, the results were very significant. The prototype of the world's #1 cavalry division had been formed. More than 5,000 people had passed the assessment. The best performance was the Tatar division commander Su He and the old student Tian who had studied in the Yang family academy. The 2 of them had killed 9 enemies at once. This was a record that no one else could break. Su He could be considered a general. He used to be a member of the Tatar army. He was regarded as one of Agar Dorji's most trusted subordinates. After joining the mercenaries, his performance had been good. He was promoted from a commander to a division commander. He had killed his way through mountains of knives and seas of fire. His achievements were not surprising. Who was Jianghu? In the past, he was not a well-known figure. It was even said that he had only started to train his equestrian skills recently. It had not even been half a year, but he had created such a record. It was no wonder that people had a whole new level of respect for him. But no one knew that before entering the Yang family academy, Tianhu had the title of Double Blade King. He was the disciple of the previous generation's Double Blade King. His speed was very fast. No one knew where he put his second blade and when he would strike. It was not an exaggeration to say that he appeared and disappeared like a ghost. Yang Qindong had once carefully observed how Tianhu killed his enemies. The speed at which he struck with his saber was extremely fast. Often, when the 2 met, his opponent would not even have time to react before Tianhu had already retracted his saber. When he met someone who was difficult to deal with, Tianhu's second saber would strike at an even more tricky angle. It was precisely because of this speed and strangeness that he finally obtained the result of killing 9 people in one battle. Hence, Tianhu was also known as the Double Saber Tianhu. And this was not his limit. Once his equestrian skills reached a certain level, his ability would continue to improve. Other than these 2, there were many other people who performed well. For example, the Tatar division's 1st Battalion commander, Taimu-er. He killed 6 people in one battle. This tiger general, who had been subdued by Yang Qindong in Narcissus town, had finally grown up.
There was also Fan Yuhai's former confidant, Lu Duo, who had killed 6 elite Tatar cavalrymen in one battle. Lu Duo had followed Fan Yuhai for a long time and was even used as a trusted aide. In the decisive battle on the battlefield west of the Waterhorse River, Fan Yuhai was defeated and captured alive. Because Lu Duo was a talent, Yang Chendong kept him alive. This person had once thought of avenging Fan Yuhai. But when he truly integrated into the mercenary camp and was guided by Yang Chendong several times, his mentality underwent a huge change. After seeing the difference between his former master and the one he was about to serve, his heroic spirit was stimulated. With such a wise master, he always felt that if he could not make a name for himself, then he would be letting down his good skills. He immediately signed up to join the battle against the elite Tatar cavalry.
Chapter 892. No matter what, Lu Duo was a captive general, not even a surrendered general. Whether he had the qualifications or not was finally reported to Yang Chendong. What was unexpected was that the 6th young master did not even think about it and directly approved it. In his words, Lu Duo was not a bad person, but he was affected by Fan Yuhai, which delayed his future. This kind of talent was naturally welcomed in the mercenary army. When these words reached Lu Duo's ears, he first burst into tears. Then, he took off his old battlesuit and changed into the new military uniform that Yang Chendong had sent someone to deliver. He was using this method to formally bid farewell to his past. After that, he joined the battle with enthusiasm and hot-bloodedness. Not bad, he relied on his extraordinary combat strength to obtain the achievement of killing 6 enemies, becoming one of the most outstanding people. Other than that, most of the time he killed 5 or 4 people, and most of the time he killed 3 people. The elite Tatar cavalry was indeed the elite Tatar cavalry. Their fighting strength was valiant, and their individual qualities were strong. Even in a chaotic battle, they could maintain a good formation. If it was a one-on-one battle, even 50 to 60,000 Mongol soldiers would not be their opponent. It was even possible that the result would be a great defeat. More than 5,000 elites had been completely picked out. The rest were either injured or not strong enough. In this kind of situation, it was difficult to pick out any more elites. When all the information was placed in front of Yang Chendong, he first took a deep breath, then slowly closed his eyes and leaned back on the chair. At the same time, his right finger gently tapped on the armrest of the chair. Seeing this, Yang Lu hurriedly retreated. Those who knew Yang Chendong knew that whenever he did this, it was when he was thinking about something important. In the main tent of the Tatar army, after a month, Tua Tuo's face was no longer as arrogant as before. The aura of disdain on his body was also restrained. Although he had won every single one of the 100 battles he had fought, the lack of military strength was finally showing. He wasn't like Yang Chendong, who had 20,000 allies from the Mongol tribes and didn't have a logistics division with 40,000 troops as backup. He only had 30,000 elite cavalry, and after a month of fighting, he was starting to show signs of exhaustion. The remaining 10,000 elite cavalry were no longer as valiant as before due to the continuous battles over the past few days. Most of them were injured and they could not even use 70% of their original strength. If this continued, it would not be long before they were completely annihilated. Although he did not want to admit it, it was the truth. It was not something that would not exist just because he did not want to admit it. Thinking about how he had come with great ambition and had lost so many soldiers, he looked coldly at Meng Ku and Hubo and said, "You two, tell me, are we going to continue fighting?" "We can't. If we continue like this, we're going to lose everything. These mercenaries are just using us as whetstones to train their troops."
Hubo was waiting for Tuo's words to finish as she spoke with a tearful tone. At the start, they had not seen through the intentions of the mercenaries. They had only thought that if they continued like this, the mercenaries would not have enough manpower. Even if they had reinforcements, after losing so many battles, their morale would be at an all-time low.
As such, it was time for them to retaliate.
Once an army lost their morale, even if they had advanced weapons like guns and cannons, they would not be able to display their full strength. As such, not only would they be able to defeat the mercenaries, but they would also be able to use these weapons for themselves. If that was the case, the Tatar cavalry would be able to quickly regain their former glory. This was also the reason why they continued to play along with Yang Chendong, even though they knew that such a battle wasn't suitable for the 30,000 elite cavalry, who were used to charging with the whole army. However, later on, they discovered that some of the mercenaries were people that they had fought before, and these people would kill them whenever they had the chance.
When the situation turned bad, they would retreat. Only then did they realize that these people were just using them as practice.
In the later stages of the battle, they could even see some of the mercenaries holding swords and shields, and they looked quite decent.
They were clearly imitating them.
Reality proved that these people were not only doing this, but the results were also quite good. In the past, they could kill 1,500 enemies in a single battle. At the very least, they could kill 1,223 enemies. But now, they could only kill a few hundred enemies in a single battle. Sometimes they could only kill 200 or 300 enemies. Then they would turn around and retreat. However, they would have to pay the price of over 100 people. The enemy was constantly getting stronger, while they were exhausted and did not have enough soldiers to exchange. Their battle strength was decreasing. Under this situation, they no longer had the upper hand. If they continued to fight, it would not be long before they would be the ones running away. Hubo no longer wanted to fight, and instead advocated for a retreat. Even Mank, who had always been fond of fighting, did not say anything. However, he did not take the initiative to fight, which made his decision clear. Seeing that his two subordinates did not want to continue fighting, Tuachuobuhua could only sigh and say, "Then let's retreat.
Let's do it this way. Let everyone pack up. We'll retreat in the middle of the night." This Yang Chendong is too cunning. If he finds out that we're retreating, I don't know what he'll do. Hu Bo had fought with Yang Chendong more than once, so she had some understanding of him. After hearing these words, she immediately nodded. Yes, the Great Khan is right. This person is extremely cunning. Even if we want to retreat, we cannot let them see it. Actually, the main reason he had summoned the two generals was to discuss the matter of retreating. He had suddenly decided to retreat tonight so that the news would not spread and the mercenaries would not have time to prepare. The two generals walked out of the Great Khan's tent and gave the order to prepare for the retreat. In addition to the 10,000 ordinary cavalry that had not been used, there were 20,000 men. There were also many injured elite cavalry, so they had to make preparations before retreating, such as packing their belongings. As soon as they moved, Su Yunsheng, who had been in charge of monitoring them, immediately noticed this abnormality. As the head of Yang Chendong's reconnaissance group, Su Yunsheng was also a veteran. The sixth young master had once talked to him and asked if he was willing to become a division commander in the new army. This was a clear sign of concern. In the end, Su Yunsheng had refused. He liked being a scout, as it allowed him to observe the enemy at close range without being discovered. Sometimes, a piece of timely information was better than an entire army, and he enjoyed the feeling of being able to predict the enemy's movements. It was a pity that with the current scale of the Scout Corps, being promoted to a regiment was already the limit. If they wanted to be promoted to a division, it would take a long time. Fortunately, Su Yunsheng was willing to endure hardship.
In order to complete his mission as a scout, he did not even participate in the selection for the 1st Cavalry Division.
Not only him, but many of the corps members of the Scout Corps were also not allowed to participate. Of course, Su Yunsheng was not the only one who did this. In fact, Tiger's Mane and Shibi had already started work on this long ago, allowing the corps members of the 1st Army to remain in the army. After all, the 1st Cavalry Division had to be built, but the construction of the other armies could not be abandoned. Because he loved being a scout, Su Yunsheng chose to rest during the day. When everyone stopped fighting, he came out and took the initiative to go to the front lines. Relying on his excellent camouflage and the advanced night vision telescope in his hands, he came every night to observe the Tatar camp from a distance of a few hundred meters. Yang Chendong had once said that if this kind of war of attrition continued, the first to be unable to bear it would be Tua. Therefore, keeping a close eye on them to prevent them from suddenly escaping became the most important task in Su Yunsheng's eyes these days. After waiting for a full month, this result had finally arrived. Seeing that the Tatar camp had become somewhat chaotic, and that some injured soldiers had even been carried out of the tents and sent to the carriages ahead of time, Su Yunsheng knew that the result that the 6th young master had long predicted had occurred. The enemy was preparing to retreat. Leaving behind the other scouts to continue observing the situation, Su Yunsheng turned around and rode back to the mercenaries' main tent. He reported the situation to Yang Chendong. After suddenly hearing Su Yunsheng's report, Yang Chendong immediately had his servant Yang Lu gather all the generals. The time for an all-out counterattack had arrived.
After receiving the order, the generals quickly came to the main tent. Compared to a month ago, the number of officers that came this time was much less. First of all, the small leaders of the Mongol tribes had disappeared. They had either passed the test and joined the 1st Cavalry Division, or they had been sent back to their tribes with heavy injuries, or they had simply lost their lives on the battlefield. In short, after this battle, the military strength of the Mongol tribes had become extremely weak, and they were no longer a threat to the mercenaries. The generals came and stood in front of Yang Qindong in 2 cases. Orders were also issued from the mouth of the 6th young master. The scouts at the front lines have sent news that the Tatar army is preparing to escape. Finally, it is time for us to launch an all-out counterattack. I believe that everyone must have been holding back in their hearts, and now is the time for everyone to release and vent. Now, I order. The Ferocious Tiger Regiment, Heavy Cavalry Regiment and the 1st Cavalry Division will form a joint force and charge forward. We must break through the enemy's camp in one blow. The Light Cavalry Regiment and the Scouts Regiment will follow closely to the left and right of the army, and protect the flanks while holding back the enemy. There are still 20,000 enemies left, and we must think of a way to destroy them. At the very least, we must destroy their main force. From now on, there will be no more Tatar tribes on the grasslands. Does everyone have the confidence? Yang Qindong looked at the generals and asked with a resolute expression.
Chapter 893.
Yes. All the generals straightened their chests, their eyes shining brightly. Very good.
After this battle, we will be invincible in this region. I want to use this battle to fight for a few years of peace. Also, the commander of the 1st Cavalry Division will be chosen through this battle. Su He, Tianhu, you two have to work hard. Yang Qindong's voice was loud and clear as he made the final mobilization before the battle. The meeting ended very quickly, and the officers returned to their respective units and began to assemble. The final attack against the Mongol Tatar tribe would be launched in 2 hours. Tua Buhua had just transported over 2,000 wounded soldiers out when a scout came to report that the mercenaries seemed to have made some movements. They were gathering their troops, and it seemed like they had already discovered their intentions. That's really fast. When Tua Buhua heard this, his face became very ugly. He knew that a final battle was unavoidable, but he did not expect it to happen at this time. It must be said that this loyal duke really knew how to pick a time. Give the order. 10,000 cavalry will stay behind to block the enemy. No matter what, they must hold on for 3 hours. When the sun rises, they can retreat. The other 8,000 cavalry will retreat with me. As long as we are here, the Tatar tribe will not fall. Tua Buhua immediately made a decision, and his determination to retreat did not waver. As long as he retreated this time, with the strength of his family, he would one day rise again. At that time, he would definitely take revenge for today's enmity. Although the 10,000 ordinary Tatar cavalry did not want to retreat, they did not have any other choice. The matter was temporarily settled like this. Those who should retreat retreated, and those who should prepare, prepared. It must be said that this arrangement was not wrong, but Tua Buhua had overestimated the 10,000 cavalry he had left behind. He had also underestimated the strength of the enemy. This time, Yang Qindong had sent out all the elite troops. Whether it was the Ferocious Tiger Regiment, the Heavy Cavalry Regiment, or the newly formed 1st Cavalry Division, they all had extraordinary fighting strength. One cavalry could even be used as a few people. In the face of such a powerful force, not to mention 10,000 ordinary Tatar cavalry, even 10,000 elite Tatar cavalry would not be able to stop them. When the 3 main forces of the mercenaries appeared in front of the Tatar army, they were like a tornado. First, there was the sound of gunfire, riddling the formation of the Tatar cavalry with holes. Then, the Heavy Cavalry Regiment appeared. They used their 3-meter-long broadswords to sweep through the army, taking away the heads of many enemy cavalry. The last to appear was the world's 1st Cavalry Division. When the 1st Cavalry Division appeared, they fully demonstrated what it meant to be unstoppable and unstoppable. Wherever they passed, the only sounds that could be heard were the howls of the Tatar cavalry and the sounds of weapons being thrown to the ground in surrender. There was nothing to be done. After a month of grinding with the world's strongest cavalry, all the members here were the most elite cavalry. Their fighting strength was extraordinary, and their strength was terrifying. They were even stronger than the previous Tatar cavalry. How could these ordinary cavalry stop them?
The 10,000 enemy cavalry that was supposed to resist for 6 hours and hold out until dawn did not even last for 2 hours.
The Tatar cavalry was completely defeated. They were either killed in battle or taken captive.
The three armies did not have the slightest intention of stopping for the kneeling Tatar cavalry.
They continued to rush forward, leaving them for the new army to clean up the battlefield. What they needed to do was to catch up with Tua Bourgeois and leave his life on this grassland. When the news of the 10,000 cavalry being defeated reached the ears of Tua Bourgeois, who was retreating, he actually thought that he was hallucinating. In the past, he had won every time with 2,000 against 2,000. Now that he had sent 10,000 cavalry, how could they be defeated so quickly? Although ordinary cavalry could not compare to elite cavalry, even if there were 10,000 pigs, they would not be able to catch all of them in 2 hours. The situation was very dangerous. Once the mercenaries caught up to them, they would be no match for them with their low morale. It was not impossible for them to be completely wiped out. Tua Bourgeois' gaze fell on Huboer and Menk. Great Khan, I'll stay behind. As for you guys, run as far as you can. If you really can't, don't care about the injured soldiers. Just leave them here to fend for themselves. I only hope that the Great Khan will be safe. There is still hope for our tribe. Huboer knew that there was no time and made the decision to die to stop the enemy. He had lost many battles in the past, but the Great Khan did not punish him. Just because of this, he would repay the Great Khan with his life. Tua Bourgeois was a person of great importance and knew that this was not the time to be pretentious. He reached out and patted Huboer's shoulder. Okay, you take care too. I'll leave you 5,000 elite cavalry. No matter what, you have to stop the enemy. Great Khan, 5,000 is too much. Just leave 2,000 for me. Huboer still wanted to decline. He was very clear that there were only 8,000 elite cavalry left. If he left 5,000 to himself, the Khan's forces would be too weak. If they encountered any danger, they would not even have the ability to protect themselves. No, 5,000 elite cavalry is not much at all. The enemy was able to break through a 10,000 cavalry formation so quickly. They must be very strong. If we leave too few people behind, we will not be able to stop them. All right, it's settled then. Remember, hold on until daybreak and think of a way to survive. As long as you survive, we'll be able to meet again one day. Tua Bourgeois pressed down on Huboer's shoulder and said in a low voice. Yes, Great Khan. Huboer nodded in the end. He knew that this was the most feasible plan. Following this, the 8,000 elite cavalry split into two groups. Tua Bourgeois listened to Huboer's suggestion and left 2,000 injured soldiers behind. He only brought 3,000 elite cavalry with him under the protection of General Menk. Huboer had a grim expression as he said to the other 5,000 elite cavalry, "It's time to show our loyalty to the Great Khan. No matter what, we have to hold on until dawn. We have to give the Great Khan and his injured comrades enough time to leave." Kill, kill, kill. The 5,000 elite cavalry seemed to know that this might be the last battle of their lives. They raised their scimitars and shields as they shouted. About a quarter of an hour later, the three main forces of the mercenaries appeared. Huboer didn't say anything and immediately charged forward. He knew how powerful the guns and cannons of the mercenaries were. If the 5,000 of them were to face these guns, they wouldn't be able to do anything. But if they were to charge into the enemy's camp, then the situation would be completely different. They would be able to restrict the enemy's movements. In truth, it was not that Xiao Feng's ferocious tiger regiment did not want to fire. It was just that the Wind Chaser regiment, Su He, and Tian who did not give them a chance to fire. They knew that this was the elite cavalry of the Tatar Empire. They wanted to win fair and square, and not rely on external forces. Just like that, an extremely intense battle began. Very quickly, the two sides began to fight. In the night, saber against saber, saber against saber, saber against shield, the sound of which rose and fell, lingering in one's ears. The soldiers of the 1st Cavalry Division who had been through life and death situations were all elites. They were all soldiers who had killed at least 3 elite cavalrymen on the battlefield. Now that the enemy no longer had the advantage and was only fighting one-on-one, they had the advantage from the start of the battle. They slaughtered their opponents until they were thrown off their horses.
This was a testament to their strength and the might of the 1st Cavalry Division.
Su He and Tian chose to charge forward continuously. One was brave and fierce, while the other was sharp with his scimitars. Wherever they went, one elite Tatar horseman after another was cut down from their horses as if they were chopping melons and vegetables. In one breath they had killed at least 5 or 6 people. Su He and Tian had unknowingly gathered together. After the two of them looked at each other, Su He opened his mouth and said, "These elite cavalrymen have good foundations. It would be a pity to kill them all. Why don't we have a competition to see who can capture more?"
"Sure," Tianhu said, keeping his words to himself.
In the past, when he was in the Yang Academy, he was a taciturn person. Unless he asked someone a question or someone asked him a question, he would not say a word. At some point, the news that the two generals had stopped killing and had started to compete to capture captives had spread. The first to stop attacking was the fierce Tiger Regiment. They set up a defense around the battlefield to prevent the enemy from escaping. Then, they raised their torches to light up the area. They wanted to witness this historic moment. Next, the Heavy Cavalry Regiment also stopped attacking. They also raised their torches to light up the battlefield. They wanted to see who would become the commander of the 1st Cavalry Division. Only 5,000 soldiers of the 1st Cavalry Division remained. They had also been influenced by the two generals. They stopped killing and started to capture captives alive. After a round of fighting, only 2,000 of Hu Bo-er's 5,000 elite cavalrymen were left. They were already prepared to fight to the death, but when they saw that the other party had suddenly stopped and changed from a murderous aura to wanting to capture them, they were all infuriated. A soldier could be killed, but not humiliated. This kind of action was looking down on them, and completely infuriated them. Under the lead of Hu Bo-er, the 2,000 elite cavalrymen began to counterattack again and again. They were inferior, so what if they had a lot of blood?
Facing the cavalry of the 1st Cavalry Division, who were even stronger than them, even though they attacked like crazy, the results were not good.
Not only were they unable to do anything to their opponents, but they also expended their energy faster. In the end, most of them were captured. Only Hu Bo-er and less than 20 cavalrymen were left. On the side of the mercenaries, only Su He and Tian were left. Chapter 894.
If it was in the past, it would have been impossible for the two of them to defeat 20 Tatar cavalrymen. But now, the 21 cavalrymen, including Hu Bo-er, had expended a great deal of energy and were panting heavily.
They had turned the impossible into possible.
"Let's settle this once and for all." Su He glanced at Tianhu, his voice carrying a clear challenge.
"Okay." Tianhu was still a man of few words.
After he finished speaking, he suddenly rushed forward and chopped at the head of one of the elite Tatar cavalrymen, forcing the cavalryman to raise his blade to block.
Using this opportunity, he slashed out with his second blade.
The back of the blade smashed into the cavalryman's back. With a heavy blow, the cavalryman's mouth spilled out and he fell from his horse, heavily injured.
In one round, they captured another man. Below them, some warriors had already run over and tied up the injured Tatar rider who had fallen off his horse. When Su He saw this scene, he couldn't help but praise in his heart. Although this Tian who didn't like to talk much and gave people the impression that he was very boring, his skills were truly impressive. Although they hadn't fought before, Su He had a feeling that if they fought one-on-one, he would be the one to lose. Since Tian had moved, Su He didn't hold back either.
He galloped towards the nearest cavalryman and used the momentum of his horse to slash out with his blade, colliding with the cavalryman's strength.
When the first attack failed, he followed it up with another attack and another attack at the same location. The 3 attacks all landed on the cavalryman's scimitar. The powerful force made it so that the cavalryman couldn't hold his blade. The scimitar fell, and Su He's blade came down again, hitting the cavalryman's chest and knocking him off his horse. Although they were both captured, Tian only used 1 round and 2 blades. Su He had indeed used 3 rounds and slashed out 4 times. Just from this point alone, it was clear that the two were stronger. The two didn't stop attacking. Every now and then, a Tatar cavalryman would fall from his horse. They were really too tired, and the ones that came were 2 battle generals with great strength. They barely managed to block a few moves before falling off their horses and becoming captives. In just 15 minutes, only 3 people were left: Su He, Tian and Hu Bei-er. Hu Bo-er hadn't participated in the battle just now. Firstly, he disdained to attack together with others, and secondly, he needed time to recover his strength. Right now, it was a 1 versus 2 situation, and there were no other companions by his side. With a howl, Hu Bo-er unleashed a ferocious attack.
With a curved blade and a round shield, he was able to fight 1 versus 2, resulting in a stalemate.
Although Hu Bo-er had lost to Yang Qindong several times in a row in terms of commanding, this did not prove that there was a problem with his intelligence. Who hadn't lost in front of Yang Qindong? Who had truly won before? If Hu Bo-er was really so useless, why would the Great Khan use him again and again? Not only that, Hu Bo-er had some talent in commanding, and his individual battle prowess was also extraordinary. He had fought against Su He and Tianhu for more than 30 rounds without losing. He was still full of energy, his blade constantly moving as he unleashed ferocious attacks. Su He and Tianhu were constantly retreating. Only when the opportunity was right would they take the initiative to attack and find the opponent's weakness. They could see that Hu Bo-er was just going all out before his death. As long as they could hold on for a while, the opponent would be completely exhausted and lose. Their estimates were not wrong. Although he had rested for a while, his body had not fully recovered. This attack was just his final performance. From the 40th round onwards, his blade speed had clearly decreased. At this moment, Su He made his move. He continued to exchange blows with Hu Bo-er, pushing him back step by step. As Hu Bo-er continued to retreat, he had unknowingly reached Tianhu's side. Suddenly, a saber slashed towards his ribs, forcing him to put down his shield to defend. At this moment, a second saber appeared. Tianhu took the opportunity and slashed at the back of Hu Bo-er's body. The huge force from the saber caused Hu Bo-er's vision to darken. He fell from his horse and was bound. The battle was finally over. Su He and Tianhu looked at each other at this moment, and they burst into laughter. In this battle, the two of them were almost equal. In the end, it was still up to the 6th young master to decide who would be the commander of the 1st Cavalry Division. The sky finally brightened. No matter what the reason was, Hu Bo-er had completed the mission that Great Khan Tuochuo had given her, persevering until the very last moment. In the end, Tua Buhua still managed to escape under the moonlight. The light cavalry and scouts that were sent out did not follow them. They only captured the 2,000 wounded soldiers and brought them back to the main camp. In the main tent, Yang Qindong looked at the generals who were covered in blood and looked a little tired, but they were in good spirits. He was naturally very happy. Although they did not capture Tua Buhua, the enemy's 30,000 elite cavalry was defeated. In the end, only 3,000 managed to escape. They were no longer a threat. Moreover, Yang Qindong had a feeling that Tua Hua was in real danger this time. After dominating the prairie for so long, he had offended a lot of people. Previously, it was because he had strong soldiers in his hands that no one dared to do anything to him. But now, there were only 3,000 elite cavalrymen by his side. So it was hard to say. Yang Qindong sat on the chair and first congratulated the generals on their victory. When he heard that they had captured 2,000 wounded soldiers, he was even happier. He ordered, immediately send them back to the first city hospital for treatment. Wounded soldiers are good stuff. They have experienced fighting on the battlefield, and even died once. They have a deeper understanding of what they should do on the battlefield in the future. Once they recover from their injuries and return to the team, they will definitely be the best of the best. Yes. When the servant Yang Lu heard the order, he immediately nodded and walked out of the tent to make the arrangements. After discussing the battle, Yang Qindong's gaze finally landed on Su He and Tianhu. He then looked left and right, but did not immediately make a decision. For Yang Qindong, no matter which of the two men was qualified to be the division commander of the world's 1st Cavalry Division. However, there was only one position for the division commander. How should he choose? Even he had a headache. As if seeing Yang Qindong's dilemma, Su He, who was standing below, had a complicated look on his face. Then, his expression became more determined. He stepped out of the group and first gave a standard military salute to Yang Qindong. Then, he said, 6th young master, I am willing to withdraw from the competition for the position of the 1st Cavalry Division's division commander. Why? Su He was willing to take the initiative to withdraw. This was really out of Yang Chendong's expectation.
However, the First Army's commander Tiger's Mane and the deputy commander Shibi, who were standing below, let out a long sigh of relief. This was the result of their private efforts for a long time.
Sixth young master, Tianhu's strength is very strong.
He is very suitable to be the division commander of the 1st Cavalry Division.
As for me, the Tatar division still needs me. Suhi said concisely. Then he looked at Tiger's Mane.
The reason why Suhi made such a decision was indeed because Tiger's Mane and Shibi had done a lot of private efforts. In order to keep this Tiger General, the two of them even took the initiative to promise that as long as Tiger's Mane was willing to stay, the Tatar division could be trained into another 1st Cavalry Division.
When the time came, they would give him whatever he wanted. In addition, Yang Chendong was a little embarrassed. In the end, Suhi made such a choice. Looking at Tiger's Mane, he knew that he had to stand up and say a few words. He stepped forward and said, "Young master, this time our new army's cadres have lost too many. Many people participated in the 1st Cavalry Division selection and joined it. If Suhi leaves, we really don't have a suitable division commander candidate. Young master, please help us." After saying this, Tiger's Mane lowered his head. He had followed Yang Chendong for a long time. He had heard Yang Chendong talk about the overall situation more than once. Now, his decision was somewhat narrow-minded. He was speaking from the perspective of the new army. He was afraid that the 6th young master would be angry. From Tiger's Mane's perspective, his way of doing things wasn't wrong. This time's actual combat training had indeed stimulated everyone's enthusiasm. Needless to say, the foreign races soldiers had used all their strength in order to be promoted to the Han Dynasty. The Han Dynasty's soldiers had also worked hard for a hero card. These thoughts were too normal. Even as the commander, Tiger's Mane couldn't stop them. He could only agree to the soldiers' requests. At the same time, he also talked to some of the corps members. There was only one goal. Once they had gotten the benefits and proved themselves, they could go back. Although the world's #1 cavalry division is good, our new army isn't bad either, right? As for the commander's advice, some people listened, while others didn't. After all, everyone had the right to choose their own future. Tiger's Mane only talked to them and didn't order them.
Even the 6th young master wanted capable people to join the 1st Cavalry Division.
How could he dare to threaten them with orders? As a result, there were indeed quite a few people who passed the battlefield test and returned. However, there were even more people who didn't return.
Because the majority of the people who passed the test were officers, the number of officers in the new army rapidly decreased.
Suhi was one of the people that Tiger's Mane and the deputy commander were willing to fight for. The truth was just as Suhi said. After he left, there really wasn't a suitable candidate to be the Tatar division's commander in the new army. Servant Yang Chendong naturally told the following things to Yang Chendong. He fully understood the other party's difficulties and turned a blind eye to some of their private actions.
Now that Suhi had publicly said that he wanted to return to the new army, he naturally couldn't stop him.
All right. Since this is Commander Suhi's own choice, we can't force it. The 1st Cavalry Division's commander will be Tianhu. He will be conferred the rank of senior colonel. According to the previous regulations, the 1st Regiment's commander will be Taimu Er. The 2nd Regiment's commander will be Lu Duo, and the 3rd Regiment's commander will be Mu Er. The 3rd Regiment's commander will be left empty until a suitable candidate is found. Finally, I will personally issue the order. What do you think? Commander Tian, do you have any other requests? Chapter 895. Yang Chendong began to set up the framework of the 1st Cavalry Division. After that, the specific work would be completed by Tianhu and the two newly appointed regimental commanders.
Tianhu, who had been called out, knew that he was going to be the first commander of the 1st Cavalry Division.
Excitement finally appeared on his calm face. He suddenly knelt on the ground and raised his head to look at Yang Chendong. With a very respectful tone, he said, "Teacher, this student will definitely live up to your expectations." Most of the people who came from the Yang Chendong Academy were used to calling him Dean. However, there were also some people who performed well and were favored by Yang Chendong. They were specially taken care of and could be called teachers. Tianhu was one of these people. It was natural for a student to kneel before a teacher. Yang Chendong didn't stop Tianhu's actions.
Instead, he said with a face full of praise, Jianghu, I'm handing over these elite cavalry troops to you.
What I want is an army that can fight at any time, and win at any time. As long as you can do this, the logistics division will do their best to satisfy your needs.
However, there is only one condition. If the combat strength of the troops is not good enough, I will hold you accountable as the commander.
Teacher, don't worry. Since you've given this heavy responsibility to this student will definitely live up to your expectations. In the future, the 1st Cavalry Division will not disgrace this name.
In the cold weapons battle, it will become the undisputed #1 in the world. Jianghu said as if he was making a promise.
He wasn't hot-headed.
Although he said that the 1st Cavalry Division was the best in the world, it was only in the cold weapons battle. From this, it could be seen that he already had some plans in mind for how to develop and strengthen the troops of the 1st Cavalry Division.
Later on, the facts also proved that the 1st Cavalry Division lived up to their name. The 6,000 cavalry troops had indeed become the strongest cavalry on the grasslands. Every time they went out to battle, the news of victory would be sent back. In battle, all the cavalrymen were good at using dual sabers. When they met a strong opponent, they would use one saber and one shield to attack and defend. In the end, as long as they heard their name, there would be no one who would not be afraid. The war with Tua Buhua had finally ended, and the world's #1 cavalry division was officially established. The 1st Division commander was Jianghu, the 1st Regiment commander was Taimu the 2nd Regiment commander was Lu Duo, and the 3rd Regiment commander was waiting to be appointed. When the news came out, Lu Duo burst into tears in his own tent. First it was the captives. Then, it was the surrendered soldiers. Then it was the battle to the death. Now, not only had he become the envied regiment commander, he had also become a member of the Han Chinese. From this moment on, he was truly reborn. The past had nothing to do with him anymore. Everything in the future would be a new beginning, and all of this was given to him by Yang Chendong. After crying loudly, Lu Duo walked out of the tent. He suddenly knelt down in the direction of the main tent, representing his excitement, emotions, and firm political determination. At the end of the battle, they brought the captives and put away the tents.
The mercenaries returned to the beginning city in a grand and vigorous manner as if they had come from the outside.
There was still a great news waiting for him here, but he was still unaware of it. The army returned to the beginning city. It was already August, and it was the hottest time of the year. The winter in the beginning city was really cold, but it was not without its benefits. At least, it was not so hot in the summer. In the Yang residence, the news of the 6th young master's return had already spread. Immediately, there was a big cleaning. Water was splashed everywhere in the courtyard. While cleaning the ground, it also had the effect of cooling down the temperature. When Yang Chendong stepped into the gate, a cool breeze blew on his face. Hee, good. Yang Chendong chuckled and prepared to go to the inner courtyard. He had not seen the 3 madams for more than a month, and he missed them very much. However, before he could take a step, the 2 maids had already bowed and greeted him with a sincere smile on their faces.
Hello, 6th young master.
The 6th young master has worked hard. Congratulations to the 6th young master. Congratulations to you too, Yang Chendong said indifferently. He thought that everyone was congratulating him because he had won the battle, so he did not care. However, when he walked all the way to the inner courtyard, everyone he met along the way would greet him and congratulate him. This made Yang Chendong feel that something was wrong. He did not know how many battles he had won, but it seemed that these maids did not care so much about it in the past.
It wasn't until he arrived at the inner courtyard that he saw the 2nd madam's maid, Xing respectfully escorting a female doctor in a white robe out. His brows furrowed involuntarily and his expression became nervous. He strode forward and said as he walked, Dr. Zhao, why are you here?
Teacher. When she saw Yang Chendong walk over, the so-called Dr. Zhao quickly saluted to show her respect. Dr. Zhao's name was Zhao Yanmei. She was also a student of the Yang Family Academy. She was once known as the 2 saints along with Yuan Heping, who was known as the Sacred Hands. However, the former specialized in internal medicine and surgery, while the latter specialized in gynecology and pediatrics. Normally, if the madams were unwell or felt uncomfortable, it would be Zhao Yanmei who came to see them. They were all women and often went in and out of the inner courtyard of the Yang residence, so they were more at ease. Now that Zhao Yanmei was here, it must mean that one of the madams was unwell. It was no wonder that Yang Chendong became so nervous. "And why are you here? Is one of the madams unwell?" Yang Chendong did not even return the salute and asked anxiously. Facing the anxious Yang Chendong, Zhao Yanmei was neither anxious nor slow. She even said with a smile, "Teacher, this student congratulates you." "Congratulations. Congratulations again. What's going on?" When Yang Chendong entered the courtyard, he heard these two words the most. At first, it was fresh, but now he was a little annoyed. "About this, please find out once you enter the inner courtyard." He did not know where Zhao Yanmei's courage came from. She did not tell him immediately, but kept him in suspense. It must be said that she had no choice. Second Madam had already told her that some things must be said by herself and not by others. "Okay, I will go take a look. Xing lead the way." Yang Chendong's face did not show whether he was angry or happy, but at least he was more stable than before. Zhao Yanmei dared to keep him in suspense, so it should not be a bad thing. Xing happily agreed and led Yang Chendong to the room of the second madam in the inner courtyard. Yang Chendong's footsteps were very fast, causing Xing to quickly fall behind. It wasn't until Yang Chendong entered the small courtyard that he saw Xiao Yin resting under a large tree. Seeing that she was fine, he let out a long sigh of relief. The maids beside the tree were very perceptive. When they saw Yang Chendong appear, they bowed and paid their respects. They ignored the sixth young master and went in front of second madam. Holding her small hand, they asked with concern, "Xiao, I just saw Dr. Zhao leave. What happened? Are you feeling unwell?" At this moment, Xiao Yin's face was red. "Young master, I did not expect you to return so quickly. I was originally prepared to welcome you at the door with fourth sister and fifth sister. We are husband and wife. There is no need for those complicated formalities." "That's right, you still haven't answered me. Where are you feeling unwell?" Yang Chendong casually waved his hand. He had never cared much about formalities. It was only because of his high status that he had to pay attention to them. However, in his opinion, when he was with his wife, he should save on formalities. Feeling Yang Chendong's sincere concern, Xiao Yin's face was like a peach blossom. She first lowered her head and then said in a voice as soft as a mosquito, "Young master, I am not sick." "Not sick? Then what is Dr. Zhao doing here?" "It's fine. What is it that you cannot tell the young master? Hurry up and say it." If Zhao Yanmei's expression did not change when he saw her and even looked a little happy, he would have thought that Xiao Yin was seriously ill. Seeing Yang Chendong so anxious, Xiao Yin knew that she could not hide it any longer. She said in a small voice, "Xiao is really not sick. It's just morning sickness." "Not sick? Morning sickness?" The anxious Yang Chendong was stunned by these words and stood there in a daze. "Yes, it's morning sickness. Dr. Zhao said that I am pregnant with the young master's child." As Xiao Yin spoke, she gently stroked her stomach that had not changed at all. She looked very happy. "Pregnant with my child?" At this moment, Yang Chendong finally reacted. He stood there in a daze. At this moment, it was as if his mind had gone blank. At this moment, it was as if everything around him did not exist and he was the only person in the world. In his previous life, Yang Chendong did not have a family because of the nature of his work. Naturally, he did not have children of his own. But now, someone suddenly told him that he was going to have a child. He was completely unprepared and did not even have the slightest bit of vigilance. He was completely stunned by this news. He was going to have a child? This was the first time in both his previous life and this life. Once upon a time, he had thought about this problem. When he first got together with Hu Yan and the others, he considered that they were still young and his condition was not stable. He had tried his best to suppress it and did not have any plans to have a child. Later on, when his condition got better, Yang Chendong thought about this problem and tried very hard. But for some reason, none of his wives were pregnant. Later on, when the war in various places became tense, he did not think too much about it. He thought that when the situation was completely stable, he would check it out properly. But he did not expect that before he even did that, he was already pregnant. This was enough to prove that there was nothing wrong with him. There was nothing wrong with him. Chapter 896.
Young master, what's wrong? Don't scare Xiao. After reporting the good news, Xiao Yin had been waiting for Yang Qindong's reaction. However, she found that the young master stood there like a fool, neither happy nor sad.
For a moment, she became anxious. Young master, I don't know what to do. After all, eldest sister doesn't have a child yet, but I already have one. This really shouldn't be happening. If young master isn't happy, then Xiao doesn't want it. As she spoke, Xiao Yin began to cry. She couldn't be blamed for being so agitated. Hu Yan, as the legal wife, didn't have a child yet, but she, as a concubine, had a child first. This was not allowed in many large clans. In fact, in order to protect the position of the legal wife, whether or not she could keep the child was another matter. The crying Xiao Yin finally woke Yang Qindong from his fantasy. When he saw that Xiao Yin was crying, saying that she was wrong, and talking about Hu Yan, he pulled her into his arms. My good Xiao, what are you saying? You have a child, so the other sisters should be happy. How could they be angry? Moreover, they will have children in the future. There's nothing to be jealous about. Ah, really?
Xiao Yin was, after all, only a maidservant and not a legitimate daughter of a large clan. Therefore, she had only heard of such things and didn't feel that deep of a fear. Now that she heard Yang Qindong say that there was no problem, then there was naturally no problem. She immediately laughed through her tears.
Hee, it's true.
It's truer than real gold and silver.
Yang Qindong hugged Xiao Yin lightly and laughed foolishly. All right, when did this happen? How long has it been?
The last time the young master married little sister Tuoya.
On the second night, didn't you come to my room and little sister Xianxia's room? Dr. Zhao said that the child is still young. Xiao Yin's face was full of happiness when she spoke of this. Oh, okay.
Yang Qindong was so happy that he could only nod his head continuously. When he was looking for the two madams, he had put in a lot of effort because he had found another sister for them. He felt a little guilty in his heart. He didn't expect that his hard work would really bear fruit.
Good, very good.
It was indeed wonderful.
Xiao Yin's pregnancy was not only a joyous occasion for Yang Qindong, but also for all of Xianxia.
As the ancients say, there are 3 ways to be unfilial, and having no descendants is the worst. Even the common people thought so, not to mention a large force like the Yang faction. It could be said that whether Yang Qindong had an heir or not was related to the foundation of the country. Yang Qindong was a good person in every way. He also enjoyed supreme power in Xianxia. However, he was criticized for not having an heir. After all, he didn't have a child. If something happened to him, what would happen to such a large system?
Where would they go?
Fortunately, Yang Qindong was still very young. He was only 24 years old now.
They could still wait and see.
Otherwise, those old masters would probably consider sending him for a thorough examination. Now that Xiao Yin was pregnant, it was enough to prove that there was nothing wrong with Yang Qindong.
This way, everyone's hearts could finally be put down.
Yang Qindong returned, and the news of second madam's pregnancy quickly spread.
Xiao Yin didn't let them say it before. First, she wanted to give the young master a surprise. Second, she wanted to see sixth master's thoughts.
If Yang Qindong cared about Hu Yan's feelings, then she would definitely make the decision to abort the child.
Among the madams, Xiao Yin regarded Yang Qindong as more important than her own life.
As long as the young master was well, she was happy. As for her own thoughts, it didn't matter.
Now that Yang Qindong had returned, it showed that he liked the child very much. The news naturally spread. Immediately, countless telegrams were sent out from Origin City. Countless officials lined up outside the Yang residence, requesting to meet and congratulate them. Beta Persei was the first to rush over.
Although he was a servant of the Yang family, when the young master wasn't around, he didn't dare to casually enter the inner courtyard without orders. There were differences between men and women. Perhaps the young master wouldn't say anything, but someone might make a fuss about it.
Young master, congratulations.
As soon as he entered the courtyard and saw Yang Qindong, Beta Persei knelt down with a plop. At the same time, tears flowed from his eyes. They were tears of excitement and joy. As a person by Yang Qindong's side, he hoped more than anyone that the young master could have children as soon as possible. He had a little master,
or even a group of little masters. All right, get up. Why are you crying as a man? Yang Qindong felt Beta Persei's loyalty. He excitedly helped him up and then laughed. The young master will have children in the future. How is it? Are you happy? I'm happy, I'm happy. Beta Persei nodded repeatedly without any pretense. Yang Qindong patted Beta Persei's shoulder and said emotionally, All right, then I'll say something that will make you even happier. Step down from your position as the logistics division head and hand over the job to Yang Lu. You will continue to be by the young master's side in the future. He was used to working with Beta Persei. Even though Yang Si and Yang Lu did a good job, he still felt that something was missing. All right. Beta Persei nodded vigorously. Although being the logistics division head was impressive and everyone had to curry favor with him, compared to being able to be by the sixth young master's side, that was all bullshit. Well, go and tell Qiu Vi, Dao Xiao, and the others to guard the courtyard gate. Tell those who want to congratulate him to do their jobs well. The young master will be very happy and go do whatever you need to do. By the way, the scale of the guards should also be expanded. Now that we have enough manpower, you can ask the two captains to pick the best ones to expand the guards. Yang Qindong thought that the number of guards was only 100. They could handle some small matters, but when it came to major matters, they would still be weak. Therefore, he took advantage of this opportunity to choose a good number of elites during the training. Yes. Beta Persei agreed excitedly. He had been thinking about this matter for a long time, but since the young master did not say anything, he really did not know what to say. Young master, what scale do you think is suitable for the expansion? A guard team of 500 people. The strength of 1,000 people should be enough to ensure the usual safety. By the way, go and discuss with Jiang Ping. The security of the inner court should also be increased. What exactly is needed and how many people are needed will depend on what she says. Yang Qindong thought of Qiaoyin's pregnancy. This kind of thing would continue to happen in the future. The safety of the madam must also be protected. The number of female soldiers must also be increased. Yang Qindong was about to have a child. The news quickly spread, and the entire first city was bustling with noise and excitement for several days. After that, everything gradually returned to calm. At this moment, a message from the Security Bureau interrupted the peace. Not only that, but the entire logistics division's captive camp was filled with wails and cries. Tuochuo Hua died. He died on the road of escape. He was ambushed by the Walla's leader, Yes Hen. He, along with 3,000 elite cavalry and General Menk, all died in battle. According to witnesses, after Yes Hen made a mistake last time, he sent out 30,000 cavalry this time. However, even with 30,000 men fighting against 3,000 men, they still paid a heavy price. More than 10,000 men died in the battle, and the remaining 20,000 men were all injured. In the end, the battle lasted for 3 days and 3 nights, and everyone was exhausted to death. Tua Buhua himself also died in the end. It was said that there were no less than 50 wounds on his body. With the death of Tuochuo Hua, the Tatar tribe was about to become a part of the history of the grasslands. They went from glory to decline. Although Tuochuo Hua was dead, his spirit was still there. The captives in the logistics division had always thought that one day, the Great Khan would come back. This way, they would have a place to be useful. Now that their hopes were dashed, many of them began to slack off. Some of them even went on a hunger strike, as if they wanted to live and die with the Great Khan. This was especially true for the 2,000 injured and sick people who were sent to the hospital. They wanted to get revenge on Yes Hen and almost caused a scene in the hospital. If the mercenaries did not appear in time, there would be a big problem. Among the captives, there were quite a number of Tatar soldiers. Naturally, the situation would not be small. The officers had no choice but to report the situation to Yang Qindong. Not long after, Beta Persei personally came out and brought Hubo from the captive camp to the Yang residence. In Yang Qindong's courtyard, in the pavilion in front of the fake mountain, Yang Qindong and Hubo sat opposite each other. In front of them was a stone table with a steaming hot tea in the middle. Beta Persei and the first guard captain Qiu Vi were staring at Hubo to prevent him from jumping up and attacking. Remove the shackles and shackles. Yang Qindong casually ordered Beta Persei as he demonstrated his skills in the art of tea ceremony. Young master,
This person's strength is not ordinary.
Beta Persei wanted to remind him of something. However, Yang Chendong said in an unquestionable tone, "What's wrong?
Is it because the young master has not moved for a long time that you have no confidence in the young master?"
Beta Persei was reminded of the young master's abnormal strength. He walked up and used the key to unlock the shackles, freeing Huboer.
Now free of her shackles, Huboer rubbed her wrists and smiled.
This tea was personally brewed by the Duke of Loyalty. It must be delicious. Ha ha. As he spoke, he picked up a teacup. His originally smiling face suddenly changed.
Then the teacup was shattered, and a sharp piece of porcelain fell into his hand.
He quickly slashed it in front of Yang Chendong. Bang! A figure suddenly flew out.
Before Beta Persei and Qiu Vi could react, Huboer's burly figure flew out and crashed into the courtyard, his face covered in dirt.
Yang Chendong was still sitting there as before. He held a teacup and slowly tasted the tea. The tea is not bad. Chapter 897.
You're courting death.
Beta Persei finally reacted. He snorted coldly and walked towards the courtyard. From the looks of it, he wanted to teach Huboer a lesson. Beta Persei, bring Huboer over and let him sit down. You and Qiu Vi can just watch from afar. Yang Chendong raised his head slightly and ordered in an unquestionable tone. Beta Persei did not dare to disobey. He could only help Qiu Vi carry Huboer and place him in front of Yang Chendong.
Then, the two of them retreated far away and quietly watched everything unfold.
Huboer sat down again. His face did not show any signs of defeat. On the contrary, he looked at Yang Chendong curiously and asked,
"Your martial arts are very powerful."
Speaking of which, this was the first time Huboer had observed Yang Chendong so closely. Only now did he realize that compared to Tua Buhua, this self-proclaimed heavenly Khan was so young that it was ridiculous. Haha, you want to kill me? Then I'll give you a chance. Yang Chendong said without answering the question.
Then, as if he was performing a magic trick, he took out a dagger the length of an arm and placed it on the stone table. Then, he signaled to Huboer with his eyes. It was as if he was telling Huboer that the dagger was here and that he could take it at any time and attack him at any time.
Yang Chendong's calmness and even arrogance made Huboer very angry. He was not Yang Chendong's match, but that was only in terms of strategy. In terms of martial arts, he was someone who could fight against Tianhu and Su He for dozens of rounds. How could he be afraid of Yang Chendong? He was just careless earlier. This time, he would not be careless again. Suddenly, he reached out to touch the dagger on the stone table.
However, before he could see Yang Chendong's movements clearly, he was sent flying again and landed in the courtyard.
Beta Persei and Qiu Vi appeared, and the two of them once again carried him to the stone table and sat down. They could see that the sixth young master's martial arts had improved again. If he was prepared, even several Huboer would not be a match for the young master. He sat down again and did the same thing. He touched his saber again and flew up again. Huboer continued to do the same thing. Even when she was beaten to the point of bleeding from the corner of her mouth, she did not stop. Yang Chendong attacked again and every time before he attacked, he would say a sentence.
Tuachuo Buhua, I didn't kill him. The murderer is Yes Hen of Walla.
It's wrong to seek revenge on me.
I defeated you fair and square.
You didn't die unjustly. Tuachuo Buhua, on the other hand, died in the encirclement. This Yes Hen, who only knows how to pick up the leftovers, is the true villain. You only know how to stop eating and not cooperate with treatment. Don't you want revenge? After being sent flying for the umpteenth time, Huboer was once again helped to sit down by Beta Persei and Qiu Vi. She finally spoke. How can we take revenge? We're just captives now. Who said that you can't take revenge as captives? Haven't you been thinking of avenging your great Khan all this time? Unfortunately, you've found the wrong person. Besides, who said that captives can only be captives for life? As long as you perform well, you can still stand out. Take Su He for example. He's also from your Tatar tribe. Isn't he living a good life now?
Also, in the new army, many of them were captured soldiers, right?
What are you trying to say? Huboer finally stopped, ignoring the dagger in front of him. In fact, He didn't have the strength to swing the dagger anymore. His whole body was in pain as if it was falling apart. I'm saying that I can give you a chance to take revenge. Yang Chendong finally revealed his intentions. You're going to let us go? Hu Boer asked in shock. No. Yang Chendong shook his head. Whether it was Hu Boer or the elite cavalrymen captured from the battlefield, they were all very strong. If he let them go now, once they gathered together and found someone who understood the situation, they would definitely become a threat to him. Yang Chendong would never do such a thing as releasing a tiger back into the mountains. No, then how can we take revenge? Hu Boer asked with a look that said, Are you kidding me? Join the mercenaries and you'll have a chance to take revenge. What, do you really think that if I let you go now, you can really destroy Yes Hen and his forces? From what I know, Yes Hen teamed up with Agadorji to ambush your Tuachuo Buhua Khan and reaped a lot of benefits from it. He also made a lot of money from trading with Baiming. Now that he has a strong army, do you really think that you can take revenge with this little force? Hu Boer was speechless. Although he was hot-blooded, he knew that courage alone wasn't enough to deal with Yes Hen. He also needed strength. And the mercenaries did indeed have that strength. How can I trust you? Hu Boer's thoughts finally returned to reality. When he knew that only the mercenaries could help him, his mentality changed. It's simple. Join the mercenaries and I'll help you destroy Walla's forces and kill Yes Hen within 3 years. If you can't do it, you can leave at any time. You can even start a rebellion if you want. Once Yes Hen is killed, if you and your companions want to leave, I promise I won't stop you. How about it? I can swear on my honor as the Heaven Khan to the Tungri Heaven. Yang Chendong said with a serious face. For others, swearing to the Tungri Heaven was a very important and even sacred thing. However, he didn't think so. He didn't believe in it. Moreover, he wasn't lying. He had to get rid of Yes Hen. Seeing that Yang Chendong had sworn on his honor, Hu Boer had no choice but to believe him. He nodded. All right, I believe you. Very good. It's a pleasure working with you. Now you can convince your companions not to cause any more trouble. Hurry up and recuperate. Don't wait until the war with the Vol tribe starts. Your conditions aren't suitable. If you miss the big battle, you can't blame anyone else. I'll go and convince them. Hu Boer nodded. If he wanted revenge, he needed to strengthen himself. Now wasn't the time to go on a hunger strike. With Hu Boer's departure, the disturbance caused by the captives came to an end. However, the war wasn't over yet. Yang Chendong defeated Tuachuo Buhua and Yes Hen took the opportunity to deal with this powerful enemy. The Tatar tribe also announced their withdrawal from the Central Plains. The forces they controlled were also divided up. South of Talu, Sambulakwan was occupied by Baiming Xianfu's army chief and commander of the 10,000 Department, Shi Wanshan. Yes Hen also took over Shaojing province. At this point, Shi Wanshan was Yeshen's neighbor. The mercenaries were only separated by Sambulakwan. They were already quite close. Yang Chendong didn't take the opportunity to take over more cities. His military thinking came from the future. He didn't care about the gains or losses of a city. What he wanted was to eliminate the enemy's strength. It was just like when the main force was gone, after the soldiers died in battle, wouldn't the original Tatar territory become ownerless? Wouldn't it be easy to occupy it? Notify the 1st Cavalry Division. Have them patrol the area northwest of Saihan Mountain. Tell the other forces that this area belongs to us mercenaries. Anyone who wants to pass by must pay us taxes and follow our rules. Otherwise, we'll kill them all. Yang Chendong finally revealed his fangs and began to take control of the grasslands with First City as the center. The North Desert City was still under construction. Once the construction there was completed, it would form a triangle with the origin city. At that time his power would be stable. Anyone who dared to challenge his position would be treated as an enemy and suffer the wrath of thunder. After the new army went through many rounds of selection, they returned to their original formation. The number of people in the world's 1st Cavalry Division was not full yet. Division Commander Tianhu and the 2 commanders carefully selected the people one by one. They were determined to create the strongest army in the world just like their names. The construction of North Desert City was still going on in an orderly manner. With Xianxia in charge of the overall situation, everything was going smoothly. After the Battle of Tuachuo Buhua,
The mercenaries' strong strength shocked all the people who had bad intentions. No one thought of provoking the mercenaries. The situation near First City was unprecedentedly peaceful. Xiaoyin's morning sickness was very serious. She vomited as much as she ate.
Chapter 898. Yang Qindong decided to leave, and Tiger's Mane stayed behind under his arrangement. In terms of political affairs, Yu Mian was his deputy, and in terms of military affairs, Shui was his deputy, so he could rest assured. After leaving Xianxia to build North Desert City and 6th Yang Qindong to manage the logistics team, Yang Qindong left the first city in mid-September with his 3 wives, Beta Persei, Wang Si, and the others, as well as the 2 guards and 3,200 members of the ferocious Tiger Regiment. When he left, Yang Qindong deliberately suppressed the news. He did not want everyone to know that he had left the first city. Although it was destined that he would not be able to hide it for long as he kept it a secret for one more day, he would be able to deter them for one more day. In order to prevent being discovered, the team left the city in the evening and set up camp 20 miles away from the first city. In the big tent, Yang Qindong accompanied the 3 wives to eat, and from time to time, there would be laughter. In the big tent at the side, Beta Persei was also enjoying the joy of eating and chatting with Kikij. Beta Persei and Kikij's marriage was reported to Yang Qindong, and after getting permission, they got married 7 days ago. It also became a grand occasion in the first city at that time. Not only did Tiger's Mane and a group of senior generals go, Tianhu, the commander of the 1st Cavalry Division, Xiao Feng, the leader of the ferocious Tiger Regiment, Feng Liang, the director of the Security Bureau in the first city, and even Yang Si and the others rushed over from North Desert City to congratulate their boss on his wedding. Most importantly, the witness was powerful. It was actually Yang Qindong himself who personally witnessed their marriage. With this big sign, everyone who was able to participate in this event shared the glory of it. Not to mention, Beta Persei was also very popular. At one point, he had arranged more than 50 tables for the wedding banquet, and this was because those who were not of a high enough rank did not appear. Otherwise, even 100 tables would not be enough. The better news was that Kikij was not marrying Beta Persei as a concubine, but as the first wife. Speaking of this matter, he had to thank his younger brother, Ba Tuesday. It was precisely because of his good performance on the battlefield that he participated in the battle against the Tatar elite cavalry. Not only that, he killed 4 of the enemy's men. Not only that, he was promoted to a higher rank. He also promoted his older sister Kikij. Now, only his mother, Badama, was left. Presumably, as long as she could perform meritorious deeds on the battlefield, there would still be opportunities. This was also the reason why Yang Qindong became the wedding officiator. Under such a lively atmosphere, Beta Persei could not stop smiling that day. 7 days after the wedding, he left the first city with the young master. After asking for instructions, he decided to take Kikij out to see the world. Inside the tent, Kikij did not seem to be in a good mood. Speaking of which, this was the first time she had been so far away from her mother. Although she had just come out, she was already a little homesick. As her husband, Beta Persei was the best choice to enlighten her. "Madam, do you miss your mother? It's okay. Your mother is very safe in the first city. Besides, your younger brother is now a company commander in the new army. With him around, your mother won't be lonely. This time, we are going out to see the world. You don't know how prosperous Xichen City is. That place is no different from a holy place in our hearts." Tiger's Mane stretched out his hand and hugged Kikij in his arms, with a comforting expression on his face. Kikij burrowed into the wide and warm embrace and found a more comfortable position. "I think the first city is very big, it's very good." Ha! In this regard, Beta Persei was speechless. For a person who was used to drifting around the grassland, the first city was indeed very big. Seeing that Beta Persei did not speak and only smiled, Kikij's face showed a trace of caution. "What? Are you starting to despise me?" "Humph, I knew it. My mother also said that when a man gets a woman's body, it's the beginning of dislike." "Oh, I'm being wronged. How could I be that kind of person?" Beta Persei cried out loudly, then found that Kikij's face was full of smiles. He knew that she was teasing him, so he pretended to be very angry and said, "Well, you dare to lie to me." As punishment, I'm going to carry you to bed now. Don't. Don't. It's not completely dark yet. Wait a little longer. When it came to this matter, Kikij's face quickly turned red. This man was a bull. A barbarian. She couldn't stand it every time. If it started now, it would be a problem for her to walk tomorrow morning.
In order to divert Tiger's Mane's attention, Kikij took the initiative to say, "By the way, little brother did not join the 1st Cavalry Division, but chose to be a company commander in the new army.
This won't affect his future, right?" How could it?
When it came to serious matters, Beta Persei was indeed a lot more well-behaved.
He liked to talk about these things, especially when he saw Kikij looking at him with admiration. The world's 1st Cavalry Division is indeed the most elite army. If it's a cold weapon battle, even Lung Feng might not be a match for it. But because they are all too strong, it's not easy to make a name for oneself there. It's better to go to the new army. Relatively speaking, the conditions for promotion there are much more relaxed. Besides, this is the intention of Tiger's Mane and Shibi. They first found Batu and persuaded him to stay. They also made a lot of promises, so it's impossible for them not to keep their word. They won't lie to Batu, right? You know that little brother is very honest. Kikij was still a little worried. To him, whether it was Tiger's Mane or Shibi, they were both important people. On the other hand, Beta Persei, who was beside him, was too close to him, so he didn't feel anything. They won't. Beta Persei patted his chest and promised. With my face, how could they not treat Batu well? Besides, little brother is not honest at all. He has a lot of ideas when he's in trouble. Ah, who said that little brother is not honest? He's an honest person. A moment ago, she was looking at Beta Persei with admiration, but after hearing what he said, Kikij became unyielding again. Haha, I was wrong. Beta Persei understood the principles taught by the 6th young master. He didn't know how to reason with a woman. When he saw that the situation wasn't right, he immediately surrendered. This caused Kikij to laugh coquettishly. In the main tent a few dozen meters away, Yang Chendong was drinking horse milk wine and eating mutton with the 7th madam. Yang Chendong wasn't very interested in these things, but it was the madam's request. She also said that after leaving here, it would be difficult to eat such authentic food in the future, so he could only accompany her. War God, is second sister asleep? Just like how every madam had their own way of addressing Yang Chendong, Tuoya was used to addressing Yang Chendong in this way. She's asleep. People who are pregnant always like to sleep. Hee. When Xiao Yin was mentioned, Yang Chendong's face was filled with a happy smile. He was someone who was going to be a father, and Xiao Yin was now treated like a national treasure. In the past, there were only 4 maids serving her, but now there were twice as many, and 8 maids were serving her. Not only that, but Yang Chendong also gave her personal maid, Xing a very high authority. Unless Xiao Yin was willing, no one was allowed to disturb her, not even the madams. This wasn't his intention to drive a wedge between the madams. In the future, he had watched many palace dramas, and there were many matters related to internal strife. Anything could happen. In the face of powerful interests, any kind of friendship could change. Especially when Xiao Yin was pregnant with his first child. It was impossible to say that no one was jealous. In order to prevent any possible man-made accidents, the safest way was to take sufficient measures now. Although it would hurt some people's feelings, once the rules were set, they could slowly get used to it in the future. Of course, all of this was only on the surface. Secretly, Yang Chendong also instructed Jiang Ping to pay special attention to second madam. The newly formed female guards were put to good use. Once they discovered someone with ill intentions, they could directly take them down without asking for permission. With this hidden hand, Yang Chendong's heart could finally relax a lot. War God, when we have a child in the future, will you protect me like how you protect second sister? Tuoya could feel Yang Chendong's nervousness. She could understand this point. Her background as a princess allowed her to understand some things too early. Because of this, she didn't have any intention of blaming Yang Chendong. On the contrary, she was very supportive. Of course, you are my wife. Your safety is naturally the most important. Yang Chendong was very casual, but his tone was very firm. That's great. Tuoya nodded contentedly. Oh, by the way, tell me about the other sisters. You know that we're about to meet each other, so we should know in advance what to pay attention to. Otherwise, it won't look good if we make a fool of ourselves. Okay. Yang Chendong really wanted to push the task to fourth madam, Lady Xiang. However, when he thought about how Tuoya had already left her hometown to follow him, if he rejected such a small matter, who knew if she would be sad? On the battlefield, Yang Chendong was the strategist. No matter how strong the enemy was, he wouldn't be afraid.
However, in front of the other madams, his general's demeanor had long disappeared.
Other than doting, there was only affection left. She waited for Yang Chendong to speak for 2 hours. When it was already late at night, he became careless. Tuoya's face was flushed red under the candlelight. When she thought of what was going to happen next, she said softly, "Call fourth elder sister over. I can't handle it alone." Okay. Seeing that Tuoya had already gotten used to accompanying him with the other sisters, Yang Chendong was very happy. This was also a way to promote the friendship between the sisters. The next morning, the group set off as usual after breakfast. Everyone seemed to be in a good mood.
This kind of process where they didn't have to think about fighting and only had to travel slowly was a great way to improve the relationship between everyone.
Chapter 899. Su Yunsheng, the head of the reconnaissance team, was the first to set off, leading a company of scouts to scout ahead. With the sixth young master in the team, there was no room for carelessness in terms of safety. Yang Chendong didn't refuse Su Yunsheng, who had resigned from his position as head of the reconnaissance team and insisted on following him. This person seemed to be born to be a scout. With him around, there would be a better guarantee of safety, and he wouldn't have to worry too much about accidents happening. The team was vast and mighty, and slowly, all the way to the Nuergon-Dusi area. Usually, when transporting supplies, they would often use this road, but the transport team could quickly pass through here in 10 to 20 days. However, Yang Chendong's team took more than a month. This was mainly due to the inconvenience of Qiao Yin's body. If there was a bumpy road in a hurry, who knew what would happen? Although Dr. Zhao Yanmei followed along, it was better to take precautions. In this way, the army stopped and walked until the beginning of October, when they finally arrived at Sea Town. There were already more than 30 ships waiting here. Long Yuntian, the acting head of the 1st Division of the 1st Sea Army, was ordered to wait here. When he saw the vast and mighty team coming from afar, he led the team and waited until the convoy approached. When Yang Chendong walked over, accompanied by Beta Persei and the guards, Long Yuntian led a group of officers to greet him. "Greetings, 6th young master. Long Yuntian, acting head of the 1st Division, is waiting here for orders." "Haha, good, make the arrangements, everyone get on the ship." Yang Chendong reached out and patted Long Yuntian's shoulder. Facing this familiar person, Yang Chendong smiled with satisfaction.
But in the process of patting the shoulder, the expressions of some of the officers of the 1st Division changed, and their bodies tensed up a lot at this moment.
Long Yuntian, who was patted on the shoulder, blushed and was very excited. He was stunned for a moment before he remembered something.
He hurriedly turned around and continued to introduce, "6th young master, these are the officers of our new regiment.
This is our new political commissar, Su Hao." Long Yuntian pointed at another officer who also had the rank of colonel and introduced him formally. "Oh, political commissar Su, hello." This time, Yang Chendong didn't pat his shoulder. Instead, he reached out and shook his hand. To be honest, as the team grew bigger, there were already some people that he wasn't so clear about. For example, Su Hao in front of him was very unfamiliar to him. Su Hao's face was full of excitement. He stretched out his arms and grabbed Yang Chendong's arm, shaking it vigorously. He also subconsciously said some flattering words. "6th young master, this subordinate has admired you for a long time. Today, I finally get to meet you. I'm extremely excited. Extremely excited. Haha, do your best." Yang Chendong also responded with a smile.
Then, he shook hands with the other officers of the 1st Division one after another.
After a round of greetings, the team began to board the ships. Because Yang Chendong's return to Crimson City this time wasn't a public move, there were no large ships arranged to welcome him.
Most of the ships weren't very large, but there were always 2 or 3 second-class ships that were 70 to 80 feet long. It was just enough for Yang Chendong and the others to rest on. The largest ship was naturally Yang Chendong's. After the 3 madams and the maids boarded the ship, Beta Persei led the first guard team and boarded the ship. As for the second guard team, they had no choice but to board the other ships. In this regard, Yang Chendong didn't have any doubts. Since this was the 1st Marine Army's unit, it was his unit. No one would dare to harm him. He still had this much confidence. As for the reaction of the other officers when he shook hands with Long Yuntian, with Yang Chendong's keen insight, he naturally noticed it, but he didn't say anything. When it came to the situation of the officers below him, he wouldn't ask too much. However, his safety was at stake this time. Although he knew how to swim and was quite good at it, he knew that he had to be careful. There were a lot of diving equipment and oxygen tanks in the big warehouse. Even if there were any problems at sea, he would have no problem protecting himself. But the 3 madams were still on the ship. For their safety, there were some things that needed to be investigated. Go. Arrange for 2 capable men to ask about the situation and relationship of the officers in the 1st Division. Understood. Beta Persei, who received Yang Chendong's order, nodded and found Ba Daojiang and Pang Yu. These 2 were veterans of the guard team. There was no problem in terms of loyalty. They were also experienced in the martial arts world. It was reassuring to leave some things to them. After the team boarded the ship, the acting commander, Long Yuntian, immediately ordered the ship to set sail. The fleet then put away the anchor and set sail straight to the south. When they first boarded the ship, everything was so fresh, especially when they looked around, the sea and the sky were the same color. It was very spectacular. This made the 4th madam, Lady Xiang, and the 7th madam, Tuoya, who had never seen the sea before, very excited. But after a long time, the scenery was the same every day. Even the best scenery would have a day when they got tired of it. Yang Chendong had no choice but to play cards with the 3 madams in the ship's lounge. It was a happy and harmonious atmosphere. After a few days of sailing, the ship was finally no longer lonely. They could see other ships in the distance, but because of the distance, they didn't have much contact with each other. When Yang Chendong heard Beta Persei's report, he stood on the bow and looked into the distance with binoculars. He saw the ship with the North Korean flag. Putting down the binoculars, Yang Chendong looked thoughtful and said to Beta Persei, "Go, call Long Yuntian here." Soon, Long Yuntian appeared, and Yang Chendong's question followed. "The North Korean Navy is not far away. Do they often appear here?" I don't know." Long Yuntian shook his head with an ugly expression. This time, without waiting for Yang Chendong to ask anything, Beta Persei said with dissatisfaction, "You don't know. Have you never made this trip before?" No, this is the first time I've made this trip." "Oh yes, when I passed by here, it seems that there are ships nearby." With a red face, Long Yuntian explained hesitantly. "Okay, you can go down first." Yang Chendong raised his hand and dismissed Long Yuntian. Yang Chendong fell into deep thought as he looked at his departing figure. "Beta Persei, what about the information I asked you to send?" "There's no news yet, but soon. The Navy soldiers here are very principled. It's not so easy to get information. It will take a little time." This time, it was Beta Persei's expression that was unnatural. "There's no other way." If the task assigned by the 6th young master was not performed well, anyone would have an ugly expression. "There's no hurry. There are still more than 20 days from here to Husung City. It should be enough. It's just that the existence of the North Korean Navy in front of us is a hidden danger. Right now, Beiming doesn't have a navy, so they don't pose any threat to us. However, this is our supply route to Shurching. If the North Korean Navy decides to attack us one day, then the situation won't be good. Well, take note of this matter and remind me when we return to Resin City's marine headquarters." "Yes, young master." Tiger's Mane nodded and agreed. This seems to be a small episode. Yang Chendong didn't care too much about it, but Tiger's Mane stepped up the security work of the guards. He always had a strange feeling that the situation seemed to be wrong, but he couldn't tell what was wrong, so he could only strengthen his own defense to prevent unexpected things from happening. It's a pity that this is not on land. In case of an accident, he can't contact the 2nd Guard and Commander Xiao Feng's Tiger Regiment. But thinking about it, with their combat experience, once something happened, they should be able to react immediately. Beta Persei's nerves became nervous, and he was a little absent-minded even when he was accompanying Kikij. The days passed like this until 20 days later, they finally arrived at the sea area of Husung City. Only then did he relax a lot, and at this time, Badao Jiang and Pang Yu, who were sent to inquire about the matter, finally came to report. For more than 20 days, the two ate and lived with the Navy warriors and worked hard to make friends with them. Finally, they figured out the situation of the first group. This time, they came to report to Beta Persei. Half an hour later, Beta Persei came to the main cabin where Yang Qindong was and reported the situation in detail. Young Master, Husung City has investigated many people and many things. Long Yuntian is one of the people who has been judged to be problematic. Beta Persei reported while paying attention to Yang Qindong's expression. Long Yuntian has a problem? What's the problem? Even if you know that he has a problem, why did Gao Xiong send him to pick me up? What does this mean? Yang Qindong was also a little confused, but it could be seen that he was somewhat angry. Yes, young master, this is the problem. Long Yuntian's problem is that he was not careful when inspecting the goods at sea, and that batch of goods happened to be one of the goods that Yang Taizhu smuggled out at that time. It is because of this matter that some people think that Long Yuntian may be Yang Taizhu's accomplice. Even if he is not, at least he is someone who helped him. I heard that because of this, there is still a lot of controversy. In the following time, Beta Persei gave a detailed report of the situation that Badao Jiang and Pang Yu learned from the soldiers below. According to Beta Persei, the Vice Minister of the Ministry of Supervision, Wuxia, believes that Long Yuntian has a problem and once proposed to remove him from his post and investigate, and even search his house. But this proposal was rejected by Commander Gao Xiong of the five-man team. What Commander Gao Xiong meant was that Long Yuntian was a good cadre, a cadre who could fight. It was just that he wasn't that principled in the past. Considering that the goods came from Crimson City and were wanted by the Security Bureau, it was reasonable that he didn't check them carefully. After all, the status of the Security Bureau was very special, and not every department had the right to order them around. Therefore, Long Yuntian's problem was at most a momentary lapse in inspection, and a person should not be killed because of this small matter. Chapter 900. Since then, the two of them had never found a way to solve Long Yuntian's problem. But soon there was an impact. With Long Yuntian's ability and experience, he was originally a popular candidate to be the commander of the 1st Marine Army's 3rd Division. But because of this, his appointment was blocked by the political department. Fortunately, Gao Xiong still acted and transferred him from the 3rd Division to the 1st Division. Considering the impact, he gave him the position of acting regiment commander of the 1st Division instead of regiment commander. Right, 6th young master. Wu Qian's brother-in-law is the 1st Division's political commissar Su Hao. He's on the ship beside us. Beta Persei seemed to have thought of something and whispered to Yang Qindong. Yang Qindong listened quietly and slowly nodded. Even though he was secretly returning to Crimson City, he was afraid that he would attract too much attention and that someone would have ideas about him on the way. But no matter what, he shouldn't have sent an acting regiment commander to escort him back. Now, it seemed that this was Commander Gao Xiong's idea. He was clearly using this method to remind him to pay more attention to this matter. Gao Xiong still understood Yang Qindong. He knew that as Xianxia continued to grow stronger, he rarely interfered in the affairs of the lower ranks. For example, it was not easy for Yang Qindong to intervene in matters of Long Yuntian's level. That was why Gao Xiong arranged for this person to escort him back to Crimson City, hoping to use this method to remind him. Of course, Gao Xiong also had a sense of propriety. He did not ask Long Yuntian to take the initiative to say anything to Yang Qindong. This kind of matter of skipping a rank to report, unless it was the 6th young master who took the initiative to ask, the subordinates could not casually talk about it. Otherwise, if everyone had to report to Yang Qindong, he would not be able to handle it even if he worked 48 hours a day. That was why the current situation was like this. Long Yuntian escorted him back to the city as acting regiment commander. He also arranged for political commissar Su Hao to follow him. One was a political commissar, while the other was only an acting regimental commander. The former's brother-in-law was a high-ranking official in the Ministry of Supervision. Naturally, everyone would side with the former. It was no wonder that when Yang Chendong expressed his intimacy with Long Yuntian, the officers in the regiment revealed strange expressions. After figuring everything out, Yang Chendong sighed. The self-inspection was carried out under his instructions to prevent a similar incident to Yang Taizhu from happening again. Now, it seemed that the investigation was very strict. Not only that, it seemed to be a little excessive. If this continued, wouldn't it cause panic among the people? Go. Call Long Yuntian over. Remember, don't let anyone else see you. After pondering for a moment, Yang Chendong still wanted to hear what Long Yuntian had to say. Understood. Beta Persei nodded and turned to leave. Not long after, Long Yuntian appeared in front of Yang Chendong wearing a guard uniform. As soon as he appeared, he knelt on the ground with a plop and said that he was guilty. What are you guilty of? Yang Chendong's face was serious, but it was impossible to tell whether he was happy, angry, sad, or happy at this moment. I have let down the 6th young master's trust. I was careless during the inspection at sea, causing the smuggling ship to pass right in front of me, but I didn't know. I am guilty. Long Yuntian knelt on the ground, his eyes red as he said. Ever since he received the military order from Commander Gao Xiong, he had been waiting for this moment, waiting for Yang Chendong's private summons. When he came, Commander Gao Xiong had already said that the higher-ups were keeping a close eye on him. His position as acting regimental commander was only a temporary measure. If he couldn't solve it this time, he was afraid that when he returned, not only would he not be able to become a full member, he might not even be able to wear this uniform. If someone really wanted to investigate Yang Tiezhu's previous problem, he wouldn't be able to become a member of the Cold Front if he couldn't explain it clearly. This way, no one would dare to ask him if there was a problem. The best ending would be to be given a piece of land to farm. Although Long Yuntian wasn't afraid of being a farmer, he didn't want to continue farming in this situation. He didn't want to leave the army without a clear reason. However, he really had a problem that he couldn't explain clearly. If someone really didn't let go of this matter, he was afraid that other than a limited number of people, no one would be able to save him. And of course, Yang Chendong was among these limited number of people, and he was even the leader. After all, the leader of the 5-man team was the future 6th madam. Even she had to listen to the 6th young master. This could be said to be Long Yuntian's only hope, but no matter how he looked, the 6th young master didn't seem to have any intention of meeting him alone. Seeing that they were about to reach Crimson City in 3 days, he seemed to have lost all hope. He couldn't even sleep well these 2 days. Just when he couldn't see any hope in life, Beta Persei suddenly appeared and even took his guard uniform. Long Yuntian was overjoyed. He knew that his only hope had appeared. When he saw Yang Chendong, he knelt down and admitted his mistake, tears streaming down his face. Yes, you're right. Whether it was because of carelessness or carelessness, the smuggled goods passed right under your nose and you didn't notice. This is indeed a mistake that can't be ignored. It's only right that you be punished. Yang Chendong nodded. Yes, it's right. I'll obey the arrangement. Long Yuntian didn't have any intention of quibbling. If you do something wrong you will be punished. There was nothing to doubt about this. What he suspected was that the punishment was a little too harsh, a little too targeted. This was also what Yang Chendong didn't understand. Logically speaking, Yang Tiezhu's smuggling wasn't the first time, so it was impossible for him to encounter Long Yuntian's inspection every time. If that was the case, then he would suspect that he was really involved in the smuggling. But if he didn't encounter it every time, then why did he have to target Long Yuntian like this? Could it be that there were other reasons for this? Captain Long, let me ask you, how did the other officers involved in the Navy deal with it? 6th young master, one of the company commanders was directly expelled from the military and was given a piece of land to farm. There were also a few people who wrote checks and this matter was passed. Long Yuntian didn't dare to hide anything. This was his last chance, so he couldn't hide anything. The same thing, the same problem, how could the results be so different? What is the reason? Yang Chendong keenly found the problem. This. Long Yuntian didn't answer immediately, but hesitated. What? In front of the 6th young master, you still don't want to tell the truth? Beta Persei on the side saw that Long Yuntian didn't know what was good for him, and he was angry and roared with fire in his eyes. No, I don't dare, I will say it now.
It's because the vice captain in charge of the case, Wuxian, was selfish. Knowing that he couldn't hesitate at this time, Long Yuntian threw caution to the wind and said, "Bastard, you can't talk about this kind of thing. Do you have evidence?" Yang Chendong frowned after listening. When it came to a vice captain, he couldn't help but be cautious. In particular, Luan Xiaoyu mentioned Wu Qian's name more than once in the telegram, saying that this person's workability was very good, impartial, and he was the main force in this inspection operation. This time, when he returned to Qixin City, Yang Chendong originally planned to meet this person. If this person was indeed outstanding, he could be put in an important position. But now, Long Yuntian actually said that Wu Qian was selfish, which made him take it seriously. "There is no evidence." Long Yuntian knelt on the ground and shook his head. "Everything was told to me by Xie Kuan, the assistant to Vice Captain Wu.
At that time, there was a rumor that I might be the commander of the 3rd Division of the 1st Sea Army.
This Xie Kuan came to me and said that Su Hao, Vice Captain Wu's brother-in-law, is now a lieutenant colonel in the Navy.
He wanted to see if I could consider giving him a real position and let him be the commander of the 1st Regiment of the 3rd Division.
If he couldn't, he could choose one of the 3 regiments of the 1st Division to be the commander. I knew that Su Hao had some ability, but he wasn't qualified to be the commander of a regiment, so I refused. Soon after, someone began to investigate me and said that I made a mistake in the inspection work in the coastal defense." Long Yuntian was still speaking slowly, and Yang Chendong could be considered to have a preliminary understanding of the matter. How a high-ranking officer used his authority, especially how to prevent his family from using his authority to do things that went against the law and morals, had once been a headache for Yang Chendong. The law was nothing more than human feelings. The law was the bottom line of morality, and morality was human feelings. The existence of the law was to protect the existence of human feelings. Especially for the Han people, who were originally a race that valued human feelings, it was impossible to completely eliminate such things.
Thus, there was a saying of pillow talk, and there was a saying of a 7th-rank official in front of the Prime Minister.
It was just that he didn't expect everything to happen so quickly.
Qixin City had only developed for a few years, and such a problem had already appeared, and it had become so serious that it directly involved the appointment of a division commander.
First, there was the matter of Yang Taizhu using his father's authority, and then there was this unfair treatment and even public threat. Yang Chendong knew that trouble had finally arrived. History had proven that when a country went from being strong to being defeated, it was usually due to the internal corruption. As the leader of the royal family, none of them were willing to be the ruler of a fallen country. The various decrees and orders that came out of their mouths were in principle for the good of the people, for the good of the country. The policies were good, but the people who carried out the policies were bad.
It was because they were corrupt and the governance was rotten that in the end, the good policies were not implemented well, and in the end, the people had no way to live and had no choice but to rebel.
All along, Yang Chendong's main focus had been on the expansion of the military and the development of business.
Reality had proven that these 2 matters had been greatly improved, and because of that, Xianxia's faction had been constantly growing and expanding.
However, when it came to internal governance, especially local governance, he had never thought of a better solution. Chapter 901. He had thought of doing things according to the democracy of later generations, but now it was the Great Ming Dynasty. The people who had been ruled by a feudal society for many years would not be able to adapt to democracy. Of course, he could also use his supreme authority to force it. But if that was the case, not to mention the new problems that would arise internally, once democracy was established, would the people agree to his continued expansion of power? The people were peace-loving. As long as their lives were good, they would be satisfied. How could they possibly support the expansion? If that really happened, they would really be shooting themselves in the foot. In order to achieve the unprecedented ideal in his heart, Yang Chendong must centralize power in the central government, or even in himself. For this reason, he would accept the infamy of being a warmonger and a butcher.
But in this way, how to manage his own internal affairs and make them invulnerable became the most important thing at the moment.
It was even a problem that must be solved. 6th young master, the company commander who was fired, was also blackmailed. I heard that the company commander has a very beautiful wife who is fancied by Xie Kuan's assistant.
Xie Kuan wanted to persuade them to divorce first and then marry her himself, but the company commander refused no matter what, so this happened.
Long Yuntian was still talking when Yang Chendong shook his head.
Well, the young master already knows what happened.
I will send someone to investigate. If it is really as you said, I will definitely clear your name. But before the matter is settled, we can't act rashly and alert the enemy. Do you understand? It was just a one-sided story. Yang Chendong could not completely believe it. He just took it as a reference. But to be able to say this, it meant that he already had doubts about this matter. Long Yuntian, who was kneeling on the ground, was overjoyed. After kowtowing a few more times, he left under Beta Persei's gaze.
Young master.
There was no one else in the room, so Beta Persei carefully asked for instructions. Yes, we can't doubt Long Yuntian's words, but without investigation, we have no right to speak. How about this? When we reach Crimson City, you go investigate in private and see if what Long Yuntian said is true. Remember, don't make any noise. We can't let a bad person go, but we can't wrong a good person either. Yang Chendong still didn't have the intention to investigate openly. No matter what, Wu Qian was a candidate recommended by Luan Xiaoyu. Based on this, he couldn't make a decision without conclusive evidence. Okay. Beta Persei nodded, indicating that he had noted it down. Other than Beta Persei and a few core guards, no one knew about Long Yuntian's secret meeting with Yang Chendong. Another day passed as if nothing had happened. This morning, Long Yuntian came to report that if everything went smoothly, they would be able to reach Crimson City the next day. Yang Chendong brought the three madams out to enjoy the sea breeze. Coincidentally, just as they appeared, not far away, there were several merchant ships that were obviously larger in size. Suddenly, an unknown ship approached. Out of instinct, Yang Er ordered the guards to prepare for battle. At the same time, he reported to Yang Chendong and asked the young master and the madams to enter the cabin to rest. It's okay. Yang Chendong stood on the deck and shook his head. He had already seen the bright 5-star flag on those ships. Based on this, even if the other party was not on their side, they should be friends. And he had already asked. This was the outer sea area of Crimson City. It was only about 500 nautical miles away from the city. If this place was not safe, then the First Sea Army was really useless. Of course, there was another main reason why Yang Chendong made this judgment. That was, he did not see the panic on the soldiers of the 1st Regiment of the 1st Division. Presumably, they should know about this caravan, or perhaps they should know and be familiar with who they are. The facts confirmed Yang Chendong's thoughts. When the distance between the two sides was less than 10 nautical miles, the other side actually sent a small boat to approach them. It was at this time, with the help of binoculars, Yang Chendong saw that the small group of people were actually blonde Western foreigners. How the hell did they grow up to look like this? Beta Persei looked at the foreigners that appeared through the binoculars and was very curious. While cursing, he called the acting commander, Long Yuntian, and asked, "Who are they? What are they doing? Don't they know who is on the ship? Inform them and tell them not to come close." Yes. Long Yuntian nodded repeatedly, then went to the bow of the ship and personally commanded the flag bearers to signal the other ship not to come close. At the same time, after consulting Yang Chendong, he fired a shot. The shell landed right in front of the small boat, setting off a monstrous wave. After the shot was fired, the other party's small boat stopped. After seeing the contents of the flag signal sent by Long Yuntian, they replied that they have no malicious intentions. They just want to ask if Long Yuntian has anything to sell. They are willing to pay a high price for it. Tell them no, tell them to stay away. Otherwise, sink them all and throw them into the sea to feed the fish. Beta Persei said angrily, then walked to Yang Chendong and reported the situation. Call Long Yuntian over. Yang Chendong was interested in this merchant ship that suddenly appeared. He believed that the other party did not know the importance of him and his group on the ship. The reason why they did this was probably not the first time. They wanted to come over, but it was just a habit and they wanted to try their luck. Long Yuntian was quickly called in front of Yang Chendong, and the matter about the merchant ship quickly came to a conclusion. This was indeed a merchant ship team. They belonged to a force called the Kingdom of Portugal, and they did want to trade with them. Countless facts had proven that mercenary fleets often had good things that could not be bought or seen outside. Merchants pursued profit, and they just wanted to complete a transaction. After receiving a serious warning from Long Yuntian, they had already retreated. Portugal. The corners of Yang Chendong's mouth curled into a smile. In this era, the Kingdom of Portugal was still very powerful. They were once glorious in this era, together with Spain. In history, after more than 20 years, the Portuguese finally occupied the northern Moroccan city of Tangier, which had been competing with Spain for a long time. They would develop even more powerful. In history, the Portuguese fleet should not have discovered the great Ming dynasty. It was through the efforts of generations of seafarers that they truly opened the world between the East and the West. Among them there were people like Magellan and Galileo. However, in this life, because Gao Xiong and the others had obtained the map given by Yang Chendong, they had gone to the West first. As a result, they had accelerated their contact with the Western world, which was why they had appeared in this sea area so early. Do they usually do this? Will they also stop ships halfway to buy things? Yang Chendong looked at Long Yuntian and asked a key question. Yes, they often do this. But we will not trade with them. The Navy has Navy regulations. They can't stop ships without orders, so their actions have no meaning. However, even though they have not succeeded even once, they still continue to do so. I really don't know what to say about their perseverance. Long Yuntian quickly gave an answer to this question. Okay, I know. Yang Chendong nodded. He was still reassured by the Navy's style. But letting them be so close to Kiosk City is not a good thing. It seems that it is necessary to arrange for Gao Xiong to talk to them. While he can sell them some things at a high price, he can also test their attitude and learn more about the situation in the West. This will play a very important role in the future expedition there. The appearance of the Portuguese merchant ships made Yang Chendong's idea of sending troops and conquering the West become hot. Some of the resources there are still good, and they can be occupied early. This is part of his future grand plan. Under the threat of gunfire, the Portuguese merchant ships gradually moved away. The next morning, the 1st Regiment successfully entered the coastal area of Kiosk City. In the morning, the fleet finally appeared in front of the new dock. Looking from afar, they could already see the crowd of people welcoming them. Before, they were far away, so they couldn't see anything. But now that they are close, the majestic charm of Kiosk City really appeared in everyone's sight. Seeing this, the 3 ladies couldn't help but exclaim. Even the second lady, Xiao Yin, who was the first to come here, had to sigh at this moment. After a few years, Kiosk City has become even more magnificent. Back again. After a sigh, Yang Chendong stepped off the ship and once again stepped on the ground of Kiosk City. The 6th young master returned to Kiosk City. The second lady was pregnant, so the whole palace became very lively. It was on this night that Yang Chendong was alone with Hu Yan when he mentioned the issue of children and his worries. Hu Yan was a very kind woman, and her relationship with Xiao Yin and the other sisters had always been very good. It was precisely because he knew this that Yang Chendong confided in her and told her his thoughts, including some new rules that needed to be established. With regards to Yang Chendong's requests, Hu Yan agreed to all of them. She lay in Yang Chendong's arms with a blissful look on her face. Dong Shuai, you are very thoughtful. This must become a rule. In the future, when any sister is pregnant, they must do this. I will also set myself as an example. Unless second sister allows me to go over, I will definitely not casually step into her courtyard. It's been hard on you. Yang Chendong was touched by Hu Yan's kindness and gently stroked her arm. You're tuning in to the Wisdom Diary YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.